Hi everybody, Louise Plant here with my 144 topics, and the topic that I'm talking about this week is about introducing solids to your foods. So I'm still on the theme of connecting in with your body and connecting in. So this came up this week with a client, so it was just quite an interesting topic and one that I feel quite strongly about. Why do I feel strongly about? I feel strongly about because a lot of people aren't aware that, you know, when babies are born, when they're actually growing and what's actually happening for them is the fact that, you know, there's this, the digestive system's actually forming, and if we actually start feeding them too much hard or large protein or, you know, reactive foods, then we can actually start causing permanent bowel damage. So we have a lot of people with a lot of bowel issues nowadays, and bowel is a big focus with the work that I do. So whether it's diverticulitis or colitis or anything like that, you know, irritable bowel, ulcerative colitis, intolerances, allergies, okay, a lot of it comes back to the bowel. So we have 80% of our immune system that lines our bowel, so the bowel is really important, like it's really, really important. So that when a baby's born, it has the fontanelle on the top of the head, the gap on the fontanelle. Immune system's not quite developed. Plus the digestive system's not formed. So I say to people, it's almost like its guts are like this, and then as it sort of starts to grow and develop, so between 12 months to about 18 months, the gut starts to form and it actually starts to become becomes complete, so it becomes healed. So of course if we start to feed too large proteins or too large hard to digest foods too early, we can end up with permanent issues in our gut. So we do have a lot of people running about now with irritable bowel issues and with gut issues that have come about because of improper weaning. So hence why this video, so I can educate you about this, so you can be a little bit more mindful about this. So, you know, a lot of skin conditions can come down to poor gut function. So hay fever, eczema, psoriasis, even autoimmune disorders can very much come back to gut function. So it's really important that we have the gut functioning well, because if we don't, what happens is we actually get gut contents leaching into the bloodstream. So really we've got poo floating around the blood, okay? So it's not a healthy space to be, and it's not good for us. So with that, the body starts to reflect that and show that with the skin, knowing that the skin's the barometer. So let's move on. So I had 3 kids. All my kids were breastfed, and I say to people, forget about, you know, giving birth. Breastfeeding is actually can be quite a hard process if you don't stick at it. So it's really important that mother has adequate fluids and is not having stress in their life, because that is a huge factor that impacts on that. So children will get to about 3 months, they'll start to have colicky sort of sensations that are actually happening in the body, and that can be quite a normal process, and it's almost like the body, the child's coming into its physical form, is becoming a bit more aware of what's going on. So, you know, we go through these difficult periods, the child's crying. What do people do? They will shove a biscuit in its mouth, okay? It's the worst thing that you can do in the long run, because this is a real foundational time. So the first 12 months of a child's life is a real foundational time that sets up, it's almost like setting up its health for the rest of its life. So what we don't want to be giving our child before 12 months is any wheat, any flour, any unpasteurized dairy, you know, even meat, too many fruits, sugars, ideally raw garlic, raw onions, that sort of stuff. And one thing that we tend to do is we give them spices or sugar or butter or sweetener or salt or whatever it is, because we want that in our taste buds, but the children don't need it. So, you know, when the child gets to that colicky 3-month stage, I was licking my nipple and putting some probiotic powder on there and helping it to latch on. Chamomilla, herbal homeopathic 30C works really well. And just knowing that that's a transition process. So when we have a child, we are going to be sleep deprived, you know, there's going to be all these things that's going to happen that we have to learn to adjust to. And of course, you know, the second time around it gets easier and easier. So all my children had no skin conditions, they had no problems, no nappy rash. We had none of that, because I was very mindful about what I was eating. Know that everything that you eat goes through your breast milk and comes to the child. I'm not going to talk about formulas. If that is an issue, I raised all my 3 children with goat's milk. They rarely go to the doctors. They're rarely sick. They're all healthy people. The youngest one, he had some bought cow's milk because where we lived was quite remote, and I noticed that straight away he was getting a dryness on his ankles, which would have led to eczema if I hadn't been a bit more aware of what was going on. So just address that and change that. Last child also went straight from the boob to a teaspoon, to a sipper cup, and to eating. So there was actually no bottles. The plastic bottles is another no-no that I don't like, especially when you put them in a microwave. Not the best thing for baby. So know that your breast milk's full of antibiotics. It's full of immune boosting abilities. Like, really persevere with it. Once you persevere with it, it's the most beautiful, beautiful sensation. So an indication time for me to start looking at introducing food is usually the teeth. So I'm like, okay, teeth are developing, the child is preparing for mastication, which is the process of eating. The child is developing for that. So it's getting ready, it's about time for that to happen. So teeth are an indication of that. And often they will start chewing on you and biting on you, biting on your boobs, and it's like, okay, So as you start to introduce food, 6 to 9 months, like, hold off as much as you can. So 8 months was about the time for my children. It got to a point where, I couldn't sort of hold off anymore. They were fine, they were alive, they were having healthy food. As long as you are eating healthily, then that's coming through with your breast milk. So the first thing that I started all my kids on, depends on what they like, was mashed potato. Lots of fruit is not recommended initially. Mashed banana. Lots of fruit is not recommended initially, though I was using mashed banana. It was very easy to take. I rarely, probably out of all 3 kids, bought, shop baby food maybe 5 times. So banana, I just would have a bowl and a fork and I could just mash it up and feed the child. Started with nighttime feeds only to start with, and then it was just milk during the day. So mashed up banana, sweet potato and pumpkin were the first things I started with, and aim to keep them on that as long as you can, because our head steps in and goes, oh God, they must be not enjoying the variety. They don't know variety, like all they know is what they're being introduced to. So as I said, don't whack salt and sweeteners in there as you're tasting it. If your taste buds aren't working very well, if your zinc levels are pretty low, then there's a good indication that you can't taste it, but Bubs is fine. So just start with those sort of foods, mashed potato. Sweet potato is preferable to other potato, to normal potato, and then the banana. So really prior to 12 months, no salt, no sugar, no meat, wheat, rice. Even rice I held off on. I used to sometimes bake some macaroons with coconut, minimal, maybe honey, minimal sugar, and then arrowroot. Very easy to make, and then they could just suck on them and chew on them, and grated carrot to play with, grated apple to play with, and part of this is the tactile thing that they can actually sit and play with. So once we get to about 9-12 months, more vegetables, maybe some fish. Baked beans was another easy thing that the children had and did quite enjoy. But things to possibly avoid, really, if you can just no flour up to 12 months. The issue is the fact that it's a very large protein, very hard to digest, causes permanent bowel damage. So even if you can't do the rest of the thing, really try and hold off on wheat as long as you can, at least 12 months. And up to 2 years if possible. And there are lots of other opportunities and other substitutes now. There wasn't 22 years ago when I was doing this, hence why I was making my own things. So just look at what other substitutes and what other grains you can get. Once you get to about 12 months, then maybe, sprouted grains or soaked nuts, activated nuts, sprouts, like there's just other little things. And of course, as the teeth start to develop, so does their ability to what they digest and what they can eat. So there are some raw food philosophies that talk about, the teeth, and the fact that as the teeth become introduced, so you can introduce certain foods. And also be mindful of not having too much raw food, because again it can require a lot of enzymatic activity and it can be hard to digest as well. So the message really from this recording is really about, introducing foods as late as possible. You tend to find, as I said, 3 months they get colicky. All three of mine seem to go through it. You will go through that process. And it just might mean more feeds at night. It might mean more comfort, some other things. They will go through that, and that's just a process of being, a parent. So, there will be sleep deprivation. There will be times to feed, and aim to stay on the breast as long as you can. Hold off on those foods that I've mentioned as long as you can. And just know that you're creating a really good foundation for their health. My kids are very healthy. I don't know, we've been to the doctors minimal times. They don't need to go, everything's okay. They're really healthy, and be mindful of what you're eating as well. So that's my topic for the week. If you want to know any more, by all means contact me, louiseplant.com.au. If you want to have a session with me, that's fine. Happy to work through any gut issues that you have. We will talk more about some gut stuff later on. Otherwise, I'm seeing you in health and happiness, and have a fabulous time and look after those bubbers. See ya, bye.